Vladimir Putin has agreed to a 30-day pause in attacks on power plants and other energy infrastructure. But if it goes ahead, it could also mean the end to Ukraine's successful campaign of hitting oil refineries on Russian soil. Dozens of Russian oil refineries and oil depots have been hit since the start of the full-scale invasion. And the rate has massively accelerated since the start of 2025. Before looking at the strategy behind the attacks, let's look at where they're taking place. The Telegraph has collected data on every reported refinery attack since the start of the full-scale invasion, checked by experts. Just look how far into Russian territory Ukraine has struck. We can also see just how quickly the attacks have accelerated. There have been 19 attacks so far this year. That's just 6 short of the whole of last year. Some of the refineries, like the one in Ryazan, south of Moscow, have been hit several times. Saratov, on the Volga, was repeatedly targeted too, which is unsurprising considering its location close to a key military airbase. The most successful of these Ukrainian strikes have put refineries offline for months at a time. But why is Ukraine pursuing this line of attack? Well, the first thing you need to know is that oil and gas revenues contributed a third to half of Russia's federal budget revenues over the past 10 years. Oil is really important for the Russian economy. Hitting the refineries means that oil can no longer be processed. That means that companies are forced to slow extraction, so hitting the refineries impacts on the pumping and storing of the crude oil as well. Secondly, because Russian oil companies have been cut off from Western counterparts, it's harder to obtain the parts needed to carry out repairs. Third, refineries are concentrated in the west of Russia, where most of the Russian population lives, and where they are in range of Ukrainian drones, whereas the oil fields themselves are often in remote parts of Siberia or the Arctic. In other words, out of range. We've seen where the attacks are taking place and why, but what has the impact been? Livia Gallerati is a senior oil markets analyst at Energy Aspects.
There's definitely been a tangible impact on Russian refinery runs. Some of the sites that we know have been attacked, and we've been able to corroborate that, are very big, important refineries. And we have seen a meaningful decline in Russian refinery runs. To say before the attacks, they were refining around 5.6, 5.5 million barrels per day. Now we're down to around 5.1. So there's definitely been an impact on runs. Although the big caveat there is that there is a lot of sanctions workarounds that have already emerged and are continuing to emerge, which are allowing buyers to keep taking Russian oil. So we haven't seen a massive disruption in flows just yet. There has been a decrease in how much is being delivered to, say, China and India, which are the main buyers of Russian oil, but it's not being a particularly large loss to the market.
There's also a propaganda element here. Ukraine has been successful not only in the act of attacking Russian sites, but also in publicizing it.
Yes, there's definitely been a lot more that Ukraine has claimed to have carried out in terms of attacks. The big word of caution here is that not everything that has been reported by Ukrainian sources as a hit to a refinery is actually corroborated by satellite data that we track, other information from sources that we have on the grounds.
Russia has also been targeting Ukraine's energy sources with sometimes devastating effect, but they've largely all been destroyed already. In September last year, Zelensky told CNN that Russia had knocked out about 80% of the country's energy infrastructure. In other words, while Russia may be running out of targets in Ukraine, Kyiv, on the other hand, is denting Russia's energy infrastructure with their long-range drone attacks. As Alexander Vershbow, a former US ambassador to NATO and Russia, puts it, a pause on energy infrastructure attacks is the one area where a ceasefire would benefit Russia more than Ukraine.